Welcome back to the ZERT Coffee and Chaos podcast, a show where we talk about anything and everything relating to what it means to be a survivalist and a prepared individual in today's day and age. Back with me on the show, as always, my co-host, Jamie Franks, the senior chief, now a member of D Troop. Jamie,
officially with video
officially
evidence.
video evidence.
So I did do the SSS, Triple S, the selection shooting standards. I did do it before, but I did it on kind of a target that I made myself, and I didn't video it because it was on a target made that like I basically used what's like copier paper,
right,
to make the target that I ran the drill on before, just to make sure that I could do it and video it, because I was afraid people would like talk crap because it wasn't the official target. But then so what was it, 2 weeks ago I did the drill twice on the official target with video evidence and all that good stuff. And so if anybody doubts my deltaness, there now can be no more doubt.
Nobody doubts you. Well, I'm doubting your.
I doubt that, but
I'm doubting your private chats in here. Jamie's enjoying some of the features of StreamYard here. Folks, obviously, thank you for joining us yet again on this podcast / video. If you're hearing this and wondering where the last few episodes have been as far as the videos on YouTube, I do apologize. Those will be coming out to YouTube, so if you want to see our faces, you can. But obviously, we are still releasing all of our podcasts on Thursday on Spotify, Apple, and wherever else you listen to your podcast. So thank you again for joining. Last week's episode was really fun, sent me down a rabbit hole. Definitely we will revisit the overlanding again, but when we got off the channel or off the podcast that day, I kind of threw out an idea of what I wanted to talk about this week. It was hot in the news last week. It is hot on the internet now with all of the memes that are happening. And obviously, we chose to wait a little bit so we would get all the information that we could get regarding the Liberty Safe fiasco. I don't know what they're calling it, but what it is and what it should be called are probably going to be two different things based off of the internet. So again, we open this up talking about, a survivalist channel and being prepared, and yet we're going to talk about something completely different. But when we get these cool topics,
so I disagree, because your little sign on is that this podcast talks about everything, what it means to be a prepared individual in today's day and age. And I mean, this is something that's very very relevant for somebody who does want to be a prepared individual, and this is something that is very, very relevant to today's day and age. I mean, this is not something that people had to think about or be concerned about 50 years ago. So
true.
I think this is right in the wheelhouse.
Yep. No, and that's and you bring up a really, really, really good point. Obviously, social media jumped all over this last week. Every content creator, social media influencer put something out about this, basically giving their 2 cents and what they think about and how they think Liberty Safes handled the situation. You sent me a video that Ryan Kleckner had put out, and I thought that was a really good video. And the people that run to the internet to completely bash a company, I feel like that's going all in. That's going all in on, on an 8 in blackjack or a 6 in blackjack, and thinking that, you have all the information, when I don't necessarily think that's the right thing to do. I think it's very important to gather information, because you want to make sure that, you don't wind up putting your foot in your mouth, because when it's on the internet, it's there forever.
Yeah, I agree. However, in this case, I think waiting until more information came out and reading more things that have come out and reading, more statements because there was Liberty's initial statement, and then they released a follow-up statement. This one is not. This has not aged like fine wine. This one has kind of gotten a little bit worse as we found out more details. Because in the beginning, you could have hypothetically blamed a lot of this on, oh, people on the internet are making assumptions. We're assuming this and we're assuming that. But then, as more information has actually come to light, it turns out that most people's assumptions were mostly true. Going back to Ryan Kleckner's Instagram video, Ryan Kleckner's a friend of mine. He's somebody I trust a lot. There have been a couple of times, like I know him personally, and there's been a couple of times where I've posted things on social media, and he's called me on my cell phone and been like, "Hey, bro, take that down right now." And I have just said, "Okay." Because he's a former Army Ranger, sniper, combat veteran. He got out of the Army and became a lawyer, and specifically the scope of law that he practices is mostly in the firearms arena, kind of in the same vein as like Firearms Policy Coalition. I don't know if firearms law is a thing. I don't want to make up words, but most of the law he practices is in the Second Amendment and civil liberty, and specifically dealing with firearms space. And yeah, his take on Instagram was very objective and was very educated and had, actual a good foundational legal background behind his opinion.
Right.
It was his opinion. Right. But if anybody wants to look at it, his Instagram is it's at Kleckner, and you spell that Cleckner. But he's a good dude. He's a good guy. He's very smart, and he's very educated. Those two things are not always hand in hand. But he has an actual background in this stuff, and his take on it was a little bit early before we knew as much as we know now. Sure. But he does point out the fact that a lot of people's early assumptions were just that a lot of people were jumping to conclusions and jumping on assumptions, which we now know are true, but that doesn't make his opinion any less valid. So that's right. It's 13 minutes long. If you want to check out his Instagram and watch the video, it's good.
Right. But so let's just make sure that this is at the top of the show. What, coming from, I guess me, and I'm pretty sure that you agree, what Liberty Safe did was absolute trash. What, they provided information that they should have never provided.
When I first joined the Navy, one of my very first mentors, who, I was a seaman at the time, and he was a senior chief, and he told me one valuable little nugget of information that I've never forgotten. He said, "I didn't know is never an excuse." Like, I didn't know is never an acceptable excuse. And I think that was Liberty Safe's first little avenue of defense was, we didn't know. And
by the way, you learn that a lot, even a lot sooner than that. You're 16 years old, you're driving 55 and a 40, and you get pulled over and you say, "I didn't know." They say, "Well, you should have. Here's the ticket."
Exactly.
There is no, that's it. So that being said, let's kind of start it at the beginning. So person in question was at the January 6th day, the January 6th protest, whatever you want to call it, however you refer to it. For me, it was skyrocket at Clark Armory Day because the ammo world went nuts. But January 6th, he was there. Here we are. What's this? This is what, a year, 2 years, 2 years later? Oh, 2.5 years.
This
almost
is literally
3.
18 months later. Yeah. Or no. Yeah. So sorry. So that was January 6th of 2021. So yeah. So
we're almost 2 years later.
No, we're 2.5 years later.
Oh yeah, we're in 23. Wow.
Yeah.
My God. Yeah. So 2.5 years later, almost 3 years later, and Alphabet Boys go knocking on Homeboy's door
So
ish.
I don't know the guy. I don't really know any of his background, and I didn't really try to dig into that too much. So
Right.
this also could be an internet assumption, but everything I have read on the internet of because I mean the guy's identity is known. If anybody wants to look it up, it's not a secret. But
Right.
um, from what the internet says, what Doctor Google says is that this person was present on January 6th
Yep.
in the vicinity of the Capitol, but did not really do anything. So, like, was not party to any sort of assault or any sort of breach or anything like that, as far as what I've read on the internet. But
Okay. So there, and I don't know if they'll ever really, I mean, I don't think it's out there yet. And if somebody knows of this information and are listening and they want to fill us in, please, by all means, leave a comment, reach out, figure out. I mean, you can always reach out about anything that has to do with this podcast, whether it's a question, whether it's a comment, to at info@zertnation.com. So if you are listening to this podcast and you do have some information that you want to share, email info@zertnation.com and we will get there.
yeah, if
With
we're
that
saying anything
being,
that's incorrect, I feel pretty good that we'll circle back around and correct
yeah,
as
definitely.
necessary.
I may make a Coffee and Chaos podcast email for this, but so so again, he was there, but I don't think we'll ever know what got the FBI to his door, right? Like
Right.
unless they identified who was there and then they start monitoring those people, whether it's their social media, personality, platform, whatever the case may be. At some point they became aware to the feds, and the feds go and plan to visit this gentleman and ask him about his extended car's warranty.
Yeah, so I've got exactly as you said. I don't think there was any prior knowledge on the guy's part. So as far as from his perspective, this was a completely out of the blue, uh, unexpected visit. I got that they turned off his power in advance of the raid because they knew he had ring doorbells and security cameras and things like that. And so one could argue that they didn't want their activities to be recorded. Um, so they killed the power to his house, which neutralized all his video surveillance capability. They pulled up to his residence in armored vehicles, which indicates a full strong arm raid. Um, there is video footage of this, of him being he did not put up any resistance at all. I did watch the video of that, and they very aggressively arrested him and his. Now I can't remember if she's his fiance or wife, but they were arguably overly aggressive to both him and his
With zero
female.
resistance.
Yes, with no resistance at all. And then this is just a kind of a little good time to point out that um, it's kind of a patriotic thing, in my opinion, to question authority and to not trust authority. I mean, I've always said, like, police don't really have any obligation to protect you. They don't always necessarily have your best interest at heart, and certainly in this case, the FBI was not looking to protect this gentleman's civil rights at all. So they did a strong arm raid and an aggressive arrest on this guy with no.
Did they release what they arrested him for? What charges did they
I
bring
have
up?
not seen that anywhere. And from what I've read, so as of now, from what I've been able to find, even the details of the search warrant have not been released. There was a search warrant, and just in generic terms and generic statements made by both the FBI and Liberty Safe, they both state that there was a search warrant to search his property. But I mean,
we'll get into
yeah,
search warrants in a second.
yeah.
So what's really bothersome to me here is Trump. He got arrested. His charges were posted. His mugshot was posted. You can search anybody that was arrested yesterday and see what they were charged with.
Yeah.
Why do we not understand what this guy was charged with? What was it that they think he did that required a full armored raid and an aggressive takedown? Was it because he had firearms in a safe? Come on, bullshit. Like, that's all suspect right there to me. I mean, that does not make a lot of sense. It does not make a lot of sense.
In Ryan Kleckner's video, he makes the point that, for a search warrant to be granted, there has to be, it has to be very specific.
Right.
It has to be justified, and it has to have a narrow scope of definition. And the example he gives is, if the police think you stole an outboard boat motor, they can't come to your house and look in your sock drawer because an outboard motor wouldn't fit in your sock drawer. They also, if during the course of their search, they come across a file cabinet, they can't go into the file cabinet and start reading all of your private papers because the outboard motor is obviously not in there either.
They can, but anything that they find in there is, I believe it's referred to as fruit from the poisonous tree. So anything that they find, or maybe that's just on a legal search warrant. I'm not too sure. Now, I think there is some plain sight clause, but like you just said, if it's a warrant for me stealing a car, you can't go search my bedroom for it. So so that's a very, very good point. So I don't. So I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
Well, no. So with that in mind, that both parties in question, Liberty Safes and the FBI, have both said that there was a valid search warrant granted. But then Ryan makes the point that that any search warrant in any state ever has to be specific in what it's looking for. There has to be valid justification, and then it has to be a very narrow scope of what is to be searched. So all the statements that I've seen have just been very generic and very broad, that there was a search warrant to search his property. And Ryan makes the point that unless the safe was specifically outlined in the search warrant, that they shouldn't have access to it anyway. And then that brings us into Liberty's kind of culpability in what obligation do they have, even if there was a search warrant to search the property, and even if the safe itself was included in the warrant or in the scope of the warrant, what obligation do they have to give up the information on how to access the safe?
And the really simple answer to that is zero.
Right.
None at all, because if there was a search warrant issued, it was by the court to or for this person and their property. Had nothing to do with Liberty. And I think I put this out there, whether it was on social media, understanding the difference between a subpoena and a warrant is very basic. Like you should know that. Well, I shouldn't say. I mean, you would think that most people know the difference between what a subpoena and a warrant is. Subpoena is, sorry, you don't have a choice in it. You're giving me whatever you need. When somebody gets subpoenaed to court, they have to show up to court. There is no ifs, ands, or buts, or they will be arrested. And that's one point that Ryan makes in the video, where he says he doesn't expect the owner of Liberty Safe to go to jail for this guy if they subpoenaed him. But I think it's been very, very clear that Liberty Safe was not subpoenaed. They were called. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Finish.
Yeah, I was going to say they were called and they said, we have an arrest warrant for this guy. We need to get into his safe.
Yes, I thought this was a good time to I will read verbatim Liberty
Yeah.
Safe's statement on this matter. So this is a complete quote, um, start to finish. This is from Liberty Safe's. This it starts on August 30, 2023. Liberty Safe was contacted by the FBI requesting the access code to the safe of an individual for whom they had a warrant to search their property. Our company's protocol is to provide access codes to law enforcement if a warrant grants them access to a property. After receiving the request, we received proof of the valid warrant, and only then did we provide them with an access code. Liberty Safe had no knowledge of any of the details surrounding the investigation at the time. Liberty Safe is devoted to protecting the personal property and Second Amendment rights of our customers and has repeatedly denied requests for access codes without a warrant in the past. We do not give out combinations without proper legal documentation being provided by authorities. We regularly update our policies to ensure both compliance with federal and state law and reasonable consumer privacy protections within the law. First and foremost, Liberty Safe is committed to preserving our customers' rights and will remain unwavering in those values. End quote. So when you really dive into that, there's really three things that really jump out at me. It says in their statement, they point out that the FBI requested an access code to the safe of an individual for whom they had a warrant to search the property. So, assuming that is correct, that seems like some very creative wordsmithing, because having a
On
search
whose
warrant to
part?
search the property
On
doesn't
Liberty's?
necessarily. Yes, on Liberty's part.
Okay. Got it.
Because
Okay.
just because there was a valid search warrant to search the property doesn't mean the search warrant specifically granted access to the safe. But they kind of say this twice. Our company protocol is to provide access codes to the law enforcement if a warrant grants them access to a property. To me, that's like way far too vague and far too broad and overreaching,
Yeah.
because access to a property does not necessarily grant access to a safe, depending on what they were looking for. And then it says Liberty Safe had no knowledge of any of the details surrounding the investigation at the time. Well, that's
Right.
kind of exactly the point. Is
Right.
if you don't know the details and you don't know the scope of the warrant and you don't know what they're looking for, then you haven't been subpoenaed, to your point, then you have absolutely zero obligation to provide the FBI a code to access the safe. And then,
Well, hold on, because I just
yeah,
want
go
to
ahead.
kind of jump in there, because I would go as far to add to that. It doesn't matter even if they do know those things. If they know those things, their immediate response should be, "Please get a subpoena, and we will give you what you want." But
Correct, because
until
the subpoena is going to narrow down exactly what information is required by law that you give
right,
us. Like
right,
it's going to way narrow that scope down to exactly what we need and why.
right, okay, and the
And
third piece that jumps out. Oh,
oh,
go ahead. Sorry.
that was the third piece, was that they admit in their statement that they knew none of the details, when the whole point of this should be that you need
Yeah.
to find out the details
Right.
before you just give somebody's access code away. And this is something that, like, I've advised people a couple of years ago. Like, I was invited to be a guest speaker at a Second Amendment uh, symposium. I should have written down exactly what it was called, but I was a panelist on for a variety of issues that kind of that can be problematic to people in the Second Amendment community. And I was there specifically to speak on traveling with firearms, because I travel with firearms quite a bit, and the overall legality and what authority do the airlines have, what authority does TSA have, where does state law play in, where does federal law play in, all those things. And one of the points that I made that I think is pertinent to this case is, like, with a little bit of pushback, law enforcement will back off a lot of the time, as long as you're coming correct. And an example of that is when a police officer pulls you over and they say, well, do you have anything dangerous in this vehicle? Do you have any drugs in this vehicle? Do you have anything in this vehicle that I should be aware of? And you say, no, officer, I don't have anything in this vehicle. And they say, oh, well, then you wouldn't mind if I take a look around. Now, it does not matter at all whether you do or don't have anything in your trunk. There could be a dead hooker in there, or there could be a spare tire.
Right.
That does not matter. What matters is whether or not you give them consent. What they're trying to do is like Jedi mind trick you into going, no, I haven't done anything wrong. I have no reason that you shouldn't look in the trunk, because if you do have a dead hooker back there, you're counting on the fact that they're going to go, oh, this guy just gave me consent. He must not have anything back there. I'm not going to worry about it.
Right.
But the whole thing is the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution protects you from unlawful searches or seizures, and
right.
they are required to have your consent to search anything. And whether or not I have anything in my vehicle ever, I do not ever give consent to search anything, because with just the smallest bit of resistance, a lot of times they'll back off. Or in my case, every single time I've ever been in any sort of situation like that, they'll back off. There's been times with the TSA where I'm traveling with firearms and they'll say, hey, we need the key to your gun case. And I'll say, no. If you want me to open the gun case, bring it out here and I will open it and we'll observe the contents of my gun case together.
Right.
And they'll go, oh, no, we need your key.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm not giving you my key. Bring the gun case out here and I will unlock it and we'll observe it together.
Oh, yeah.
And like every single time so far, they have backed off of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm sorry, like when I travel, if I'm traveling for a competition, my gun case has a rifle, a very nice rifle, 2 pistols, a very nice shotgun, and then optics and ancillary equipment. I mean, that's
right.
That's around $20,000 worth of equipment. I'm not just going to give you my key. My point is, just by pushing back the slightest little bit, they back away. So,
and that's a good, I mean, that's a good topic. And that might be something that we go into a little bit further, because I had a very same situation where they were like, and their rebuttal to me every time is, well, we're TSA. And I was like, exactly. Like I was like, you can either bring me in the back and I'll unlock my case, or we're done here. And they ended up bringing me into the back to unlock the case. The thing that we can explore on another episode is, whenever they want TSA approved locks, I ain't giving, no. I mean, no, you're not getting a TSA approved lock for my gun case. Sorry. Not going to happen. Because then they will just go in the back of in your case when it's in the back, and that's that. But
the key takeaway here is like giving anybody, whether you're a private citizen or whether you're Liberty Safes, giving law enforcement access to something like everyone should kind of be in the habit of only giving what is required by law.
Right.
And in order to do that, you have to know your rights and you have to know what protections you have under the law, whether you're Liberty Safes or Jamie Franks, getting on an airplane with a gun case.
Right. So that was Liberty's initial statement, correct?
That was their second statement that they released. The first one was a far more vague version of that one. That was their second one that they released.
Now, they've obviously somebody must be tracking on the internet, and they must be getting all of the blowback from the entire 2A community and whatnot. And so they released a third statement.
The one that I just read is the latest.
Oh, that was it. Okay. All right. They're not in a good place. They are. I mean, you see people are posting the pictures of the Facebook marketplaces selling the safe. I mean, the memes, they got the meme with the safe, Liberty safe full of Bud Light. Like they are getting canceled.
So, well, and normally this is something that I would normally be against, but like I kind of said before, the more information that has come out, the more we have found out that all these things that were originally assumptions are actually kind of panning out to be correct. So this is a case where I kind of think maybe they deserve to be canceled. I mean, this brings up a whole slew of issues, like, with them providing the code. Do they manufacture all their code, all their safes with a secret universal access code, like backdoor programmed
Right.
in? If that's the case, can ninjas access Liberty Safe's headquarters through the ventilation ducts
And have
get
access to all of them.
those codes? And now, because you breached Liberty Safe's database or headquarters, now you have access to my safe. Disclaimer: I
But
don't
so,
have a Liberty Safe, but
and here, right. I mean, I know that I checked, and I did check. So after you and I had the conversation, I remember a buddy of mine who, and now I forgot what he told me. Something happened where he lost the combination. No. His safe has a combination, but also has a key.
a key
So
lock.
I
Yeah.
guess it can be double locked. So even if you know the combo and you have the key locked, you can't get into the safe. He locked his key in the safe. Either that or he lost his key. One of the two happened. Or maybe he lost one and the other one was locked in the safe. He had to call Liberty
Oh, this
and
was
give
actually
them
a Liberty Safe.
this was a Liberty Safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did
Okay.
ask him. And he's a lawyer too, on top of it. So we talked about subpoena versus warrant, and I gave him the whole rundown. But he had to call Liberty Safe, provide them the serial number, and they were able to get him a replacement key so he could then get into the safe. My question is, I have a Winchester safe. I bought it. I think I actually did register it. If you don't register your safe, the company doesn't know you have a safe. You go buy it from a store, bring it home,
Okay.
right? Nobody knows you have a safe. So if somebody looks for your code, how can they find it
Well,
if you
but
don't?
because whether the company knows that Chris Bardagon has a safe or not, they know they manufactured that safe, and I'm assuming every safe is either individually serialized or
Okay.
belongs to a, like ammunition manufacturers have a lot number. So the
Yeah.
safe either has a lot number where
Right.
safes number 1001 through 1079 are keyed with this key and this combo, and then from
Right.
1080 to 1209
Yeah.
are this other one. So it's either a lot number or individually serialized. Whether or not they know that you have that safe, they know they
Right.
manufactured it.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
and
And then
like,
they just got that serial number.
yeah, but like this actually brings up one of the things that I wanted to talk about anyway. Like, I think a lot of people, regardless of what kind of safe you have, again, I have two gun safes, and neither one of them are Liberty safes, but I would actually venture to guess, and just kind of just knowing how the world works, I would not be surprised at all, and would probably even go so far as to bet money on the fact that this is probably an industry standard, that safe companies do record these things, and they do have these little back doors built in. Um, but so this brings up a couple of other questions, and Ryan Kleckner brings up this point,
Yeah.
that this is why he tends towards mechanical locks, meaning like an actual combination lock that you have to spin, because if there is any factory preset code in a mechanical lock, that can be erased. There's a very simple tool that you can buy to completely zero out anything that was preset in a mechanical lock. He also brings up the point that electronic locks, like the keypad type locks where you punch in a numeric code on an electronic keypad, somebody that could break into your house. I mean, my if anybody wants to break into my house, I welcome that. I actually welcome intruders. You are welcome to find out where I live and attempt to break in. Um, but my gun safe is down in my garage. So if somebody broke in through the garage, they could just take a hammer and smash my keypad. And now they can't steal the guns that are in my safe, but now I can't get to them either. And also, an electronic keypad does leave open that vulnerability for there to be a universal quote unquote backdoor code. But
True.
he also makes the point that like that is one of the things that we don't necessarily know. This could have been something as simple as Liberty
The co-
Safes ship all their safes with 1 2 3 4 5
Yeah.
pound sign, and they
Yeah.
provided just as a completely generic general inquiry. Maybe they provided that to the FBI that, hey, our safes all ship with this preset code, and maybe this guy never took the time to reset his code. I mean, that's like on day
Now,
one, I reset my code, but maybe this guy didn't.
right.
So
Regardless if that was the case, still not
it's not
not
cool.
cool. Right. Still not cool. Like, don't provide them anything. So going back to that whole if a intruder smashes the keypad thing, I mean, yes, does my safe have one of those keypads and then you turn the, the lever? Yeah, 100%. Um I get those for ease of use or speed of use, I guess, if you will. Like, it's easier to, under duress, probably press however many numbers and open it than to screw it, screw it, screw it, screw it, go back
Yeah.
and forth, making sure you get the right number, get it.
You're
I
100% correct on that, by the way. Like when I bought my safe, I was a little less educated than I am now, and I bought it exactly for what you just said, for convenience. Like just
right,
speaking as an uneducated at the time
right,
consumer, I can punch an 8-digit code into this thing and open it in literally in 2 seconds, or I can stand here for 3 minutes
right.
spinning in a manual combination. Yeah.
And if the intruder thinks that they're going to smash my keypad and then I'm not going to have access to a firearm, we can talk about that as they're
Yeah, but
held. I mean, right. So again, am I in a different situation? And everybody has to understand what their situation is.
an intruder
My
that has seen the movie Airheads one too many times could think they could suck up a straw of Coke and blow it into your keypad and open your safe. So,
True, very true. But my point there is there are firearms in my safe. There
there
are
are.
also firearms that are not in my safe.
Yes.
So,
That's why I encourage intruders.
right. So, I'm sure everyone out there listening has a nightstand firearm. And if you have kids, I hope that it is at least locked up, or they are educated. They're old enough and they're educated where they do not touch that. I mean, there's no children in my house, so
Well, personally, I think assault weapons should be banned, and I think all guns should
wow.
be locked up. And I don't agree with high capacity magazines. And if somebody breaks into my house and disables my safe, there's absolutely no possible way I can defend myself. So,
Exactly.
you should
And
probably just go
bottom
ahead
line,
and try that out.
yeah. And your house is a gun-free zone. So
That's exactly. Yes. How did
all
you know?
criminals, all criminals are not allowed in. So there you go. Um, so so that being said, so we understand what kind of led up to the FBI. Well, we don't know what led up to it, but the situation happened. They got there, they arrested them, they contact Liberty Safe, and they give the story of what they need, and Liberty Safe feels obliged to give it to them. Now, I don't know if it's come out. Did they ever release who they spoke to at Liberty Safe? Again, not that any of it matters. This is just for information purpose. They don't remember. They
Nothing
didn't
that I
release
saw,
who.
and it was also so nothing that I read addressed who exactly it was they spoke to at Liberty Safe, and also nothing I read really specifically outlined like was this field agent on the ground executing the search warrant, Agent Joe Smith that was in the house, or was this the director of the FBI? Nothing that I read outlined on either end
Okay.
who it was at the FBI that contacted who at Liberty Safes. I haven't seen that.
And again, just to make sure that it's out there and it's reiterated, none of that matters.
Right.
It doesn't. I mean, all it is for information purpose. Like if they called the 1-800 number, or with today's day and age, you can just contact companies via a chatbot. And
I'm
if they
laughing, but
just,
that's a legitimate question that I would ask.
right. Exactly. Like, did they call the 1-800 number, or did they reach out to the website and hit the chat bot and say, hey, I'm agent so-and-so, here's my badge number and I need this? And then the random customer service person that started a week before was just like, oh my God, it's the FBI, I have to comply, and gave them that. Again, does that absolve Liberty? No, not at all.
Not at
Because they
all.
should have trained their employees.
But one of the
But
things that angers me the most that I read about this situation was that there had, in the wake of this situation coming to light, there have been tons of customers that have come out and said that they have a Liberty Safe, and kind of like the situation you described earlier, for one reason or another, they lost access to their own safe, and Liberty Safes would not help them, the paying customer, access their own safe. Liberty Safe would just say, oh, you need to contact a locksmith to either try to open your lock or drill it out. Liberty Safe was unwilling to help their own customers, but apparently they were super willing to help the FBI.
well, okay, so that information came from where they were unwilling to help customers? Because obviously, I just I do have a friend who just went through this, so I don't know if.
I watched Ryan Kleckner's social media feed on this. Grand Thumb had some information on it, and this was just one of the things I read through social media, or maybe it was a news outlet that. But there were several customers that have come out and said that they contacted Liberty Safe themselves to try to gain access to their own safe, and Liberty Safe wouldn't help them.
So I am curious about that, because that could go back to that point where I said, I buy a safe, I don't register it under my name. I then call Liberty Safe and say, hey, I lost the key to my safe, I need the access. And they're like, okay, what's your serial number? Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
They say, what's your serial number? I give it to them, be like, no, that's not registered, or no, that's not registered to you. And that's why they don't provide anything.
That is a fantastic point. That's a great point. I didn't
now, I don't know if that's what happened in this situation, but I can speak to my friend's situation where he's a hunter, and he's got a very nice safe. So I'm sure that he provided everything that he needed to provide to Liberty when he bought the safe, probably registered it for warranty purposes, the whole deal. He's got very nice firearms, so he wants to keep everything safe. That would be the only situation I'm aware of that I can speak to. So I know that he did.
You're totally right, and that's that. It wouldn't surprise me at all, because a lot of people slant their side of the story to support their own argument. So
sure.
that giving Liberty Safe the benefit of the doubt, that's very, very plausible in my mind.
Yeah, that's all again, whether it's that or not, Liberty Safe, it doesn't get a pass here for me. Can we stop being that, oh, well, I did this and I did that? Yeah, listen, Liberty Safe has the one problem to deal with, and that one problem everybody can kind of get on board and behind with, because they literally shouldn't have given anything. So the whole oh no, they didn't help me with my safe. Okay, maybe, but give me all the information before we,
fair point,
burn the rest of them at the stake. We've already burned them. Let's not burn them again. And I don't know where I was going with that point before that.
So, assuming that this actually is an industry standard, and that regardless
Oh,
of
right,
whether you have a Liberty safe or not,
right.
whether you have a Winchester safe or a Canon safe or a whatever, uh, stack on safe or whatever, assuming that this is an industry standard and there are these little backdoor codes that exist, you just hit the nail on the head that even if all that is true, Liberty Safe had no obligation, and they should have known better than to just freely give out this information without being specifically forced under law
Sub-
to
Subpoena.
yes, subpoenaed under
Right, right, right.
the law to give this specific information for this specific reason against this specific person. And like I was kind of joking around a little bit earlier, but to get serious here for a second, I mean, like this really all comes down to a matter of like our civil rights and civil liberties. And when we talk about civil rights, everybody conjures up this image of Martin Luther King marching across the bridge in Selma, Alabama, or whatever. But like the first 10 amendments of our Constitution outline our civil rights as Americans, and this is another erosion of our civil rights. And I've always said, you can decide today, you can choose today that from now until the day you die, you are never going to speak another word. You're going to take a vow of silence. You are never going to speak again from now until the day you die. And even if that is true, the First Amendment still protects you. You still have First Amendment protections. Whether or not you choose to exercise your Second Amendment rights, your Second Amendment rights will still apply to you. Uh,
Right.
you may think that you don't need a gun, you don't want a gun, but you're still protected by the Second Amendment. And I will take credit for this because, as far as I know, I'm the person that coined this phrase. Like the Second Amendment wasn't written to give us permission to own weapons. The Second Amendment was written to tell us that we don't need permission to own weapons.
Right.
So all of this is an erosion and an infringement on our civil rights and civil liberties. And like I think a lot of people that have seen this situation and have read about it, a lot of people, too many people probably have the attitude that like this isn't my problem. I don't own a Liberty safe, so it's not my problem. I don't own guns, so it's not my problem. I don't like guns, so it's not my problem. This sounds like a conservative problem, and I'm not a conservative, so it's not my problem. But you have to remember that like this, in my opinion at least, like this is how dominoes like start to fall. Like one domino knocks down the other one, and everybody should be outraged about this, not just conservatives. And like as conservatives, like I always also make the analogy that like if you're the CEO of Coca-Cola, I should not know what your politics are, because as the CEO of Coca-Cola, I should want every single person on earth, black, brown, white, gay, straight, male, female, fat, skinny. I should want every single person on earth to buy Coca-Cola. So I should keep my mouth shut, and you should never know my politics, because I don't want to exclude anybody. I don't want to give anybody ammunition to say they're not going to buy Coca-Cola. I want everybody to buy Coca-Cola and put money in my pockets. But like conservatives are like bad at mobilizing and unifying, because conservatives tend to pride ourselves on individual thinking, where like liberals are a little bit more prone to groupthink and getting behind groupthink and getting behind a kind of a group opinion. So you have to remember, no matter which side of this argument you're on, this goes back to the civil rights argument, where this is not a conservative issue. This is an attack on one civil right. Again, in my opinion, is an attack on all of our civil rights, whether you're on the left or right side of the aisle. And like you may think it's okay because it's not your problem, but it's just like Hans Gruber said in Die Hard, like sooner or later we're going to get to something you do care about, and
Right.
maybe by
Well,
then it's going to be too late. But
and I know that this is a statement that's been said, and I think it should be reminded that you can't support the Second Amendment without supporting all of the other amendments. Like if you support the second, you better support the first and the third and the fourth,
yeah,
especially the fourth and the fifth. Like you should support all of them just as much as you support the Second Amendment. You should fight for all of your rights because, like you just said, yes, they're coming for our Second Amendment right. Well, okay, but what happens if they come in for your Fourth Amendment right or your Fifth, or all of them? Like if they come for the rest of them, it's a bad time.
No, yeah,
Um,
and like to me, this is an overall indication that all of us, our civil rights are under attack by high levels of the government, and so like even if you think this isn't your problem, you're wrong.
right.
But
Definitely something that needs to be fought for, and and monitored. I mean, you
well,
need to
so
look around and see.
with that in mind, like I'm sorry, go ahead, finish. I
No,
just
no,
totally cut you
yeah.
off.
I
Go
mean,
ahead.
no, that's fine. But you need to look and see where other rights are being stripped away. Not being able to, I don't know, protest, peaceful protest. I mean, that is a violation of the First Amendment.
No, so I'm glad I let you finish because you played into exactly what I was about to say anyway when I so rudely cut you off. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
Um, now that more information has come to light, and now that we are operating less on assumptions and more on facts, like I would actually be okay with Liberty Safes being the next Bud Light because, um, like I just read an article on Friday, I think, that was like Bud Light is like officially like they're done, like they're about to like completely fold up their tents,
Wow.
because
Well,
this boycott of Bud Light has gone so far and has been so powerful that they're just going to call it quits. And
yeah.
like I think we would be justified in making Liberty Safes the next salvo in that volley, because again, like this shouldn't be a conservative issue. This should be an everybody issue, and this is a problem. And I think, based on the assumption that these backdoor codes and this potential universal access to people's gun safes, assuming that maybe is an industry standard, then we need to make an example out of Liberty Safes and
Yeah.
make it known to other safe manufacturers that this is not something that we're going to tolerate.
Yeah.
So like actually in this case, I would be okay with a little bit of cancel
Yeah.
culture, and really because I think so many people, going back to my last point, like so many people kind of have this notion that this is just a conservative problem, or this is just a gun nut problem. All these gun nuts that have their guns in a gun safe, that's their problem. But I think if we can unify and mobilize under this and make Liberty Safes be the latest example that we're not going to stand for this kind of infringement,
There we go.
and we
There we
shall not
go.
be infringed. I think that may downstream end up
Yeah.
being a good thing.
Now, I don't, and here is the, and this is kind of how we'll wrap up today's episode. Here is the infuriating part for me. A an individual, we'll just leave it as that. Their First Amendment gets violated in a somewhat public arena. Does it make national news? Someone is trying to protest, and they get stopped by people, and they're no longer allowed to protest. Where I'm going with it, and
No, I
I
would
don't, I
say
guess,
probably. I'll let you finish your point, but like I would say probably typically not, except for the what's that kid's name that um they were at the Lincoln Memorial and there was the Indian guy and the
oh
kid had a
right,
MAGA
yeah,
hat on, and but
right.
that's one outlier, but I would say probably on the whole probably
But
not.
didn't I just see something all over social media where a kid was wearing a patch of something
Yep.
on his
The
backpack?
Don't Tread on Me, the
Dead, don't tread on
Gadsden.
me backpack. Right. And it made, I mean, I think it made its
Yep.
round, whether it was on
Yep.
social media or whatnot. has this been talked about, Liberty Safe and this whole
Oh, good point.
situation in a
I
national
didn't know where
level?
you were going with this. Yeah, no.
Right.
No,
No.
I have only seen this talked about through social media, not through mainstream media. Yeah.
Right. So has not been. Um, but guarantee you, like, you know, they they're not going to let that information out. Just like there's, mainstream media has an agenda, and that's clear as day. Um, this story, they'll never get canceled by the rest of the world because the rest of the world doesn't know about it, or the rest of the country. We'll just say the rest of the country.
Yeah.
They don't know about it. So it is up to us to spread awareness and stand up as a community to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Great
Liberty
point.
Safe, you done messed up, AA Ron. And we're, sorry for all the people that work there. But you're collateral damage of this mess that Liberty Safe made. So go get a job for Winchester Safe, Rhino Metals, Rhino Safe, whatever the case may be. But you other safe companies out there, whether you hear this and that's a wishful thinking, whether you see this on YouTube, do better.
Yeah,
And
I absolutely hope that's the case.
and do not sell out your people again. And anybody else that's listening that we hope is not listening, I don't own firearms. I am a peaceful vegan, and I like gluten-free water.
And my house is a gun-free zone.
And my house is a gun-free zone. So with that being said, we are going to wrap this episode up. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate it. And if there is any feedback, please, we would love to hear it on this one, as this is a hot topic. This topic may roll us right into next week's topic, which is the bullshit happening in New Mexico. Next week on ZERT Coffee and Chaos. Until then, folks, this is ZP002. You guys stay safe out there. If you're heading to the range, enjoy it. Jamie?
It's easy to be hard. It's hard to be smart. And if it bleeds, we can kill it.
Awesome. We'll see you guys later. Thanks so much.